AI teaches you what to say, but doesn't allow you to learn. You're going to have to be better than Google. Google is information. AI is information. You are the wisdom. And if you can't bring wisdom, and the other thing I think is going to really stand you out as well, we want to pull out what's already inside of you, what you know to be true about the world. If you're getting AI to give you what you're going to do, you can't go off track.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That should cover all bases depending on where you're coming from across the world while you're listening to this podcast. You may be thinking, geez, Jacqueline's voice has got a little bit deep. What the hell's going on there? That's because it's not Jacqueline at all. This is Ian Stevens, speaker, trainer, author, and I've had the benefit of being interviewed by Jacqueline on this podcast, and we're excited today. This is a celebration because it's the 100th episode, Jacqueline Brooker.
Yeah, who thought we'd get here?
How about that? And look, I have done a season of a podcast, so I've got to take my hat off to you because it was a lot of work. I know what goes into it, and well done on getting to 100 episodes. That's a real milestone. So congratulations. Look, I'm going to kick off the way you always kick off the podcast by asking that traditional question: where in the world are you today?
Well, after a very hectic 6 weeks, I am actually sitting in my office at home just north of Brisbane. So we're located just in behind Scarborough, which is a beautiful beachside area. And that's where I am at the moment, which for the last 6 weeks has been really unusual. So I'm kind of feeling a little bit more chilled than I have in the last 6 weeks for anyone who's been bumping into me around the place. That's where I am.
So you're coming, this is from home, not even the office today.
No, I did come into the office just for this.
Right. There you go. Got to love it. We love those days where we can just stay at home and maybe not have to go to the office. And don't we love a week where we don't have to get on a plane?
Oh, don't we what? No plane, no train, no car parking. No.
All that stuff that it takes to make a living in the speaking industry. So look, Jacqueline, let's just have that initial, 3 to 5 minute overview of your journey, where you've come from, that's brought you to this today.
Oh, this is hilarious. I didn't even think that you would actually give me my own format. So I guess in a nutshell, and I quite often feel like people really know who I am, but in a nutshell, probably the last 3 years, 4 years, I've really focused on actually elevating what we do from a speaker training perspective. And that's where most people have got to know me. Prior to that, I had actually started this business, an iteration of this business in 2016, and it was actually starting to move really well. We'd hit 7-figure years. We were launching in America and going really strong in America. I actually spoke at the Professional Speakers Association conference in Canberra in March 2020 and sold out all my programs on the Friday, and on the Saturday had dripped them up as we went into lockdown. And so I actually parked and shelved this business as we went into COVID. Everybody was saying, just take it online. And my heart just wasn't in it. And I knew that it wouldn't have any integrity in it. And so for the first couple of years of COVID, I actually went back to management consulting. But if we rewind, and my background's quite diverse, and there's been, I guess, snippets of that throughout the things, but my career was as a general manager in labor hire and recruitment services. I took over a family business and scaled and did a exit. I was a general manager of a mining services company, like a $60-odd million one. I was a CEO in traffic control, which my kids called me the queen of stop go. So, lots of respect from my kids on that one. And I was also an industrial relations negotiator for quite some time. So all of the skills I have when it comes to speaking and selling and coaching and training actually are a combination of formal study, yes, but also having to use those skills every day in my own roles and teach others within my teams and my businesses how to do that. And so there was a period of time I was exiting my role as a CEO in traffic control, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do when I grew up. I still haven't found that answer, by the way. But I spent 3 months, the 3-month transition I had coming out of that role, I spent going to every single event I could find, like a 50-kilometer radius for 90 days, trying to work out where I wanted to land next. And the one thing I walked out understanding from that was that far too many rooms had really bad speakers at the front of them. And it had nothing to do with whether the event was free or well paid. And I had always trained teams how to sell and how to present and how to speak. And there's a history behind that as well. But I walked out of those rooms at the end of that 90 days going, actually, I need to go and find out what's happened to good speaking. And all of the speaker training I bumped into, because it was 10 years since I'd done my speaker training, all the speaker training I bumped into was sell from stage, tell your story, get a TED Talk. And it was like, right, something's gone horribly wrong. And I just had this moment of sheer arrogance where I thought I could do it better. And I thought, like literally, and I thought if I could deconstruct how I'd been taught and how I then started to teach others, that maybe I could do a thing. So this whole business started with 3 people at my first workshop for 3 days around the table in my post-divorce flat where I did the catering in the lunch breaks. One of them stayed with me during the thing because she actually was too broke to afford accommodation. And at the end of that 3 days, I went, oh, this might be something. And so that's where it all started.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm reflecting back to those early workshops we'd both done where, the first time they chuckled, the second time they laughed, the third time they actually rebooked onto something else with us.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. That first one, I didn't even have rebooking. Like I was just like, oh, that's done. What do I do with that now? And, and I think that's one of the things I see all the time. People are waiting for perfection and funnels and big audiences. And it's like, just get moving. Right? Just get moving. And, and when we actually really got this thing going, I went and delivered a 20-minute talk at 15 small networking rooms, similar to a BNI style, where they get a guest speaker in. So I did 20-minute presentations by 15. And that's actually what got me to my first $30,000 months consistently for speaker coaching, right? It wasn't a big stage. I'd had big stages before, but that's not where this business started.
So it just reinforces that message that you've got to do the activities, you've got to do the reps, you've got to get out there, got to do the speaking. Let me dig into a couple of things there. Your formal studies you mentioned, you and I have NLP in common. So how does NLP make its way, neuro-linguistic programming? How does that make its way into your coaching and programs?
I think this is a really interesting thing because I went off and I did a range of things. So I got qualified ICC level for coaching, advanced diploma of coaching. I did right through to my trainer certification in NLP. I did right through to advanced hypnotherapy and hypnotherapy teaching in hypnotherapy. I also did a lot of mediator and facilitation accreditations and certifications as well. And I always say to people, I didn't have to become an NLP practitioner, right? But how it actually shows up is that intersection of all those things has actually shown up in actually understanding. And this is what I think the superpower is that we bring to all of what I do is the intersection of language. And when it comes to the linguistic side, I think the grounding that gave me was it's this intersection of language and understanding how words work together and play together. People always talk about, it's about connecting with your audience and speak from your heart, but actually your words are the barrier or the bridge to that, right? And as much as we learn about NLP from the perspective of our own belief systems and our own patterning and our own language, we quite often forget to turn that back out to the audience. And what are the words we're using? I was talking last week in our boot camp. I think sometimes one of the main things that I do is not about actually teaching you how to connect, but it's actually teaching you how to remove all the potential moments of disconnection. And if I didn't have that grounding in NLP and hypnotherapy and the language models that go with all of that, I wouldn't understand that. Because as you know, one word and one sentence can completely disconnect people unintentionally because you don't understand how the intersection happens. And I think it was also a really good way of teaching me that actually everybody has their own neural pathways, their own language pathways laid down. And you've got to deal with your own first, and then you can actually connect with an audience. So it comes together in all these different ways, but it's that particularly that understanding of the intersection of words.
Yes, yeah, and I just want to pick up on that, language, because I know you, like me, believe language is so important. The barrier or the bridge, and I love that piece about removing disconnection opportunities, more so than creating connection opportunities. Tweetable, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can I just, I just want to pick up on some languaging that's actually at your website about your programs. Says they're programs that are done with you. And I particularly picked up on that because it's, it doesn't say done for you or done to you, but
Yeah.
done with you. So can you just expand on that a little?
Yeah, look, it's one of those things. And actually, it comes from, and this is crazy, the genesis of done with you actually comes from having been a resume writer, an application writer, when my mother and I had a secretarial service in the early 90s in regional Queensland. So people would come and I was very good at writing resumes and applications and selection criteria that would get people in the door. And then those people then had an extraordinary high level of success. And the reason being was because I had this incredible way of writing and doing applications and resumes, but I wouldn't do it unless, first of all, we would have an interview. You had to give me certain information because I had to make sure that when I opened that door for you, that what the person interviewing you got was exactly what they got from the resume and the application. So it was a done with you process. And it's the same with this. I will not write a speech for anyone. I will not. But I will show you how to put it together. I'll walk alongside you. I'll help you massage it. We'll hot seat it. But I cannot write it for you. And, and I have people saying to me all the time, no, I just need someone no, I can't do it for you. You want to be an authentic speaker. You want to connect with the audience. You want someone else to write it for you, right? Now, you may need someone like me to polish it and to teach you how the mechanics go together. And there is, with some of our programs, I do end up doing line by line editing as we wrap it out. But the genesis can't come from me, right? And you have to learn how to do this, because the other thing that I noticed with speaker training when I went and looked at it sort of 10 to 12 years ago, was there was a lot of like hype in the room. Get you on your feet, deliver for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Don't worry about what you're talking about. We'll teach you a structure, but you can talk about baking cupcakes. And then it was like, you'd spin people back out in the sunlight and be like, well, that's great, but I still don't know how to put my own content into this. Right? So you can't learn the muscle of how to shape your own content, your own thinking, your own IP, if you're not doing it yourself alongside me.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just drill into that a little, because for someone who's building like a speaker-driven business, myself, where do you sit on the difference between a story that resonates and a story that actually converts into business for you?
Well, I don't think they're any different, right? I think you need both, right? And so even if like you're doing speaker-driven business where there's training programs behind, there's online programs behind, you've got certifications behind yours, you still have to, that's absolutely conversion. But if you just ever want to take to the front of the stage and have place at the front of the stage, there's still conversion because people have to want you again. Right. And so to me, when we talk about, is it for business or is it for speaking? Is there a business behind it or just the business of speaking? To me, they're not different. And if you can't drop people into resonance, which is connection between you and them at a visceral level, if you can't drop people into resonance and you don't understand how to move people through deliberately, then you can't actually build a career in this, whether it's as a professional speaker or driving a business behind it. As you and I know, that they're inextricably linked, right? So resonance and conversion are not separate. You can't actually get great conversion without dropping people into resonance, because you want them to viscerally feel that they can trust you, right? And that's what accelerates that buying decision. And where most people go wrong is, even if they understand they've got to drop into resonance, they don't actually understand how to use speaking and their story to create micro decisions all the way through, right? And this is where language really helps. Like, they should be coming into agreement with you all the way through. So when you are in a position where you need to convert either interest after you speak or something from the stage, they've already got into practice, and this is NLP, they've already got into practice of micro agreements with you, right? And the other thing is people tell stories because they love stories. But your stories that you tell should actually land a point that's relevant to the work that you do and the problem that you solve for them,
Yeah, I often talk about story point benefit, that tell the
Yeah.
story, land the point, and then what's the benefit for the audience if they put your point into practice. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all of those things, and, we all have different ways of approaching it and different language and methodology around it. But at the end of the day, you need to drop into resonance, and you need to have a reason for people to start agreeing with you and seeing themselves inside of your story. Like, one of the things I talked about a lot in our most recent boot camp was, you don't want people standing in your audience or sitting in your audience and saying, "Oh, gee, I like him." You're going to say, "Oh my God, he's like me."
Mm, mm. Oh,
That's the
wow. Yeah.
shift.
There's the shift there.
Mm.
So just repeat that.
So
It's not
you
that
don't
I
want people,
like him. It's
he's like me.
mm, mm, mm. Yep. Love that. Now, in case there's people who are new to your world and haven't heard your philosophy on this before, just drop into what you mean by dropping into resonance.
Yeah, look, resonance is something, and I listen for this whenever, and we do have a whole podcast episode about it, but I listen for this whenever I'm first meeting with someone. So people will say to me, "How did you know that I'd be able to do this?" And it's because when I hear and speaking to them, I can hear this point of resonance, and it's something that most people are unaware of. And if I can give a great example of it, it's like, I usually hear on sales calls, I quite often hear it in conversations, and I needed to know that I can actually do something with it. So I was onboarding someone a few months ago. We're at a thing in Canberra, actually 6 months ago now. I flew into Canberra for her one day, and I wasn't hearing it. Right. So she was telling me she should speak. She had three things that she was thinking she should speak on, and none of them were landing for me. So they all made sense. And this is where a lot of the people listening, if you're at the start of your career, there'll be a lot of things that you're told make sense to speak on. But if you can't drop into resonance, it's not worth pursuing. So how do I know someone's there? And it's almost imperceptible. And sometimes it's just a couple of seconds, and sometimes it goes for a few minutes, and sometimes it's the rest of the conversation. But it's this moment where the person actually, the whole vocal tone drops, it deepens. So we know that as command tonality. So it comes naturally. They slow right down, right? Their breathing slows. And there's just this sense of conviction that you don't even have to ask for. And that's when I know that they've dropped into resonance. So resonance is a combination of a number of things, but it's actually a visceral response. And the reason why you slow down, not hype up, because people think, "Oh, I found my thing when I'm really hyped and pumped and blah, blah." The reason why you slow down and not hype up is because you're actually coming from somewhere that's familiar to you. Right? You're actually coming from something that you know deeply to be true. And so this particular person was talking about public financial management, which is really important on a global scale. She works in foreign aid. She was talking about small town girl made to the global stage. She was thinking she had to talk about women in leadership, and none of those things were true. What was true came up in a story that she was telling me, where she was talking about going into Afghanistan and setting up the Treasury Department post the first conflict that we're all aware of in the early 2000s. And the first thing she had to do, it didn't matter what the IMF wanted, it didn't matter what the World Bank wanted, it didn't matter the system. She had to create a system of trust with the people on the ground, because they were coming out of civil unrest or war, and they were still fighting factions. So she talked about creating systems of trust. And when she did that, everything in her changed. Like, she leaned forward, her eyes lit up, her breathing slowed, her vocal tone dropped to command, and that was it. Right. And so the work that we do is that's all well and good that it happens spontaneously, but how do we actually make sure we can create and deliberately engineer those moments of resonance?
So nature versus nurture when it comes to that skill of being able to drop into resonance on the stage. I think I know where your philosophy will go here, but is it a learnable skill, or are some people just naturally brilliant at it?
Oh, look, it's a yes and. Right.
Yes.
So some people are naturally brilliant at it, and it's also learned skill. And even those that are naturally brilliant at it, once they understand how to do it deliberately, they become our superstars. Right. So when someone comes who has that naturally, and then we work to shape with them. And one of the examples recently is Jason Blythe, who you were in the room with. We've got another one just came through our boot camp. It just blew our minds. We were literally front and center. And he came in going, "Yeah, I'm hoping to learn a little bit to improve my skills. I already speak a lot." And people love me, and they do. His stuff is really good. It's not just they love him; they love what they get out of his talks. And we just had this moment where we were able to actually teach him the skill, and it just blew up his storytelling skill, right? So some people are naturally gifted, but most of us aren't in those gifted few, right? And so what I love about resonance, once you understand how it's constructed, what I love about it, it becomes a deliberate move and becomes something anyone can have. And those who are naturally good at it become brilliant at it fast, right? It's like a nanosecond between where they sit and becoming brilliant. And those who aren't naturally gifted in that space actually can become brilliant at it too. It just takes them a bit longer than the naturally gifted, but it's a learnable, trainable skill.
I love what you've just done then, because you've put a label to, like, a hero in the Australian speaking industry is Lisa McKenna-Smith. And you put a label on what she does, those moments on stage, and it's like her major point she wants to make. She stops moving around so much, and she slows down, and her breathing stops, and she leans into the audience and almost delivers it in a whisper. And that, I think, thank you. You've just labeled what she's doing so naturally.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she's doing. And because Lisa is high energy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Really high energy, quite often getting down in amongst the crowd. It's almost whipping up the energy and the fun, because she teaches through fun. And then, yeah, you're right. When she really wants it to land and she really wants it to connect, she brings it down.
Yes, yeah, she does. So she's dropping into that resonance. With all the programs you have going on under the umbrella of Any Given Tuesday, I mean, I get tired just looking at the amount of stuff.
Yeah, let's not talk to my team right now.
I mean, we've got, the Speak More Collective, you've got the Paid Speaker Accelerator, the Next Stage. I've been to the Business of Speaking event you had on earlier in the year. I mean, and the Speaker Driven, podcast that we're recording this 100th celebration milestone episode today. So you've got so many balls in the air. Can you just, you started off here, but elaborate a little on what's the motivator and the passion that keeps getting you out of bed in the mornings? What's the deeper why? Yes, the obsession. What's the deeper why?
And though it doesn't look to the outside well, we do matrix things together. So it's not quite as fragmented and crazy as it looks. The why is actually really, really, there's two factors. One first, then go back to the deeper one. So one is actually when you understand how to use your voice and how to use your words and how to shape stories, everything changes. So, we very much focus on speaking and that sort of stuff. But, about 5 or 6 years ago, I did, and I know sales training is your space, I did the sales training for the national franchise sales team for Tattersalls for the lot, which is it's $1 billion business. And they'd lost ground, for various reasons. And I went in and I taught them two things. And one was to answer questions through story and to actually filter their people through stories, their applicants and their franchisees. And within 90 days, we quadrupled their conversion rate. And this is a substantial transaction value. And so we quadrupled it. And they also said that they were getting rid of idiots faster, which they loved. But the bit that happened when I went back, so I did the first round Australia, and then I went back and did the same route 6 months later. And the difference wasn't in their results. It was actually the amount of people, there was 87 people on that team across Australia. The amount of people who pulled me aside in the corridors as I arrived saying, hey, I know you did sales training, but I'm communicating better with my wife. I suddenly have better conversations with my son. I realized that my mates weren't hearing from me. So there was all these things. And this is the thing. It's like, yes, we talk about speaking, but it's actually a superpower, because when you find your voice and you know how to use your words and tell stories constructively and not self-indulgently, everything changes. There's opportunities that you don't even know exist in the world, and everything changes, but everything changes full stop. You become a stronger communicator, all that sort of stuff. The second part of that is deeper than that, is I actually have this fundamental belief in economic empowerment at the individual level. And that means that everybody has the right and has the ability to make money, to be able to, and when you learn to speak, whether it's to negotiate, to sell, to pitch, to speak, whatever it is, you actually have the ability to self-generate income, revenue, whatever. And yes, I know you and I both do a lot of work on limiting beliefs and all the things that get in the way of that. But actually, learning how to speak, to sell, to negotiate, to pitch, to tell stories, to speak from stage and platform actually give you ultimate control over the future, because no matter what happens, you can find a way to self-generate something. And that's really important to me. And if we want to go really deep, the reason why it's really important to me is because without having learned that skill, I wouldn't be here now. So my first voice into the world was angry and fiery and rebellious. And if you think about the style of voices we hear, it was a screeching rage, right? And that voice doesn't get you anywhere, right? And so that was my first voice into the world, was a screeching rage. And that was because at the age of 15, I lost my voice, right? Through circumstances and things that happened, and I was off the rails, gone for all money. How I made it back out, I don't know. But so my first voice was after I lost my voice, and it was screeching, angry, and wild. And then I fell into a job that I loved, and that was in recruitment and being mentored by people like Andrew Banks, who's got a big reputation as an entrepreneur now. And that was very much teaching me how to ask questions and share story and that sort of stuff from a recruitment perspective. And then I lost my voice a second time when I lost my 2IC to death by suicide, and I was blamed for her death. And it was like the whole world became a vortex in which I felt like I couldn't speak out against that judgment because it would dishonor her memory. And so that was the second time. And the third time was as recently as 2016, when I had a business go into receivership at the hands of a gag order with Reese Witherspoon. And yes, Reese Witherspoon. And so on one hand, I had a global gag order that's still in effect from one of the biggest A-listers in the world. And on the other hand, when a business goes into receivership, you're not allowed to comment on it. And so the media, there was a vortex created and the media went wild. And I haven't Googled my own name since 2016 because I lost complete control of the narrative. And so when I say the only reason why I'm still here now, coming back from 2016, coming back from 2004 when Alicia passed away, coming back from my mid to late teenage years, all of that was only possible because I actually learned how to use my voice. I learned how to use my words, and not by screaming them into the void, not by doing therapy from stage, not from telling the stories that I needed to tell. And so the passion for this is really deep. So we do teach you how to speak, but it's a stealth engine.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a deep passion beneath it. Look, those circumstances you've seen yourself go through, I notice any speakers who are good at either speaking and or coaching and training speakers, they've learnt it the hard way. They've been through life experiences that have really shaped them. So those 3 times you have lost your voice, what would you say is the main lesson that's come through that you can look back and kind of see the good in it now if you look at it, the silver lining?
There's so much good in all of it. And I'm so grateful. Like, I'm not one of these people go, I wish it'd been different. I'm so grateful for all of it. And maybe there's only something that comes when you're in your 50s. But the biggest thing is, and this is one of our fundamental values, is I've learned not to speak about something until I can speak about it with strength, power, and grace. And preferably all 3 together, with strength and power and with grace. I've learned that actually every time I've lost my voice, I've learned the power of our voice. And so that sounds almost paradoxical, but the way that I recovered from losing my voice in 2016 was to teach others how to find their voice until I was strong enough to use my own again. And so what I've discovered is strength, power, and grace, but also that you actually, recovery from anything is not, it's a village. Right. And if the village kind of disappears under your feet, then go and recreate the village. So many people stay stuck where they are. And I've also learned that the first place you have to use your words is with yourself. The first thing you have to do is rewire your own language, right? Go after your own. I quite often talk about, I think the reason I didn't become a straight out practitioner of NLP, even though I loved it and went so far in it, was because it was actually my own journey.
Yeah, and what I loved about NLP, you learnt the science, master prac, you put yourself in the chair and you hold the mirror up and you had a good hard long look at yourself. And and I went down the using the practical tools from it, not so much being a therapist using NLP.
And I'm the same. I use the practical tools rather than being a practitioner. It was monumental, and it probably created the biggest seismic shift in my entire career because of master prac, and trainers training took it even deeper again. Right. And you have to actually really look in that mirror. And the philosophy is that you cannot take, well, it's a healing modality. Let's be honest. If it's used in its pure form as a practitioner, it's a healing modality. And so you cannot take someone somewhere you haven't been yourself. And, and that's one of the things I love about this is the same. I teach this with our speaker training. It's like, you cannot take an audience somewhere you're not already willing to go. Right. If you want deep connection, you better be deeply connected to yourself, because it's not going to work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just swinging back to that statement, strength, power, and grace, I just want to drop beneath that a little. That fine line between speaking about what's happened to you and you get emotional on stage, is that okay? Or you've really got to have done the healing where you can talk about it without shedding a tear? Where's the fine line there?
I think we had this conversation actually just in this most recent boot camp, which was just fantastic. I think actually showing emotion is not a problem. I think even a gentle tear is not a problem. But I think breaking down uncontrollable, can't have to regather yourself, that's not, right? And
so that's the indicator you're not ready to use that story yet.
Yeah. And the reason that I say that is because if you deeply connect with your audience, you take them wherever you go. Now, if you get to a place where it is deep and you have to gather yourself and you can't really just move through it, even with the emotion showing, then you're actually taking a place in an audience to a place you may not be able to pull them back out of because you're too busy pulling yourself back out of it. Number one. So your responsibility as a speaker is, even if you do have something big and traumatic and dark and all of that, is you can take people in there, but you must be able to bring them back out.
Yes.
And this is that whole thing of what we get taught in NLP, the ecological decisions. Is it good for me? Is it good for those around me? Is it good for the greater good? Right? Now, if you can only take people into somewhere but can't lift them back out because you haven't lift yourself back out, that fails that test. The other thing is, one of the things that I also find quite extraordinary is when we do see therapy from stage, which is what you're talking about, which is that extra level of breakdown, the difference that happens with the audience. So when you actually are breaking down and can't quite move through it and have to gather yourself up again, the audience changes from empathy to sympathy. And that means that you are now disconnected because they're just hoping you'll be okay. They no longer hear anything you have for them. They're just hoping you'll be okay. And if we think back to, you mentioned the next stage, and one of our speakers, Annette, absolutely froze. And one of the things I drill into my people is, if you freeze, we teach them recall zone, all those sorts of things. If you freeze, hold the space.
And she did it well.
Yeah. Don't apologize. Don't stumble. Just hold the space, go to recall zone, and trust it will come back through. Now, one of those pauses was extraordinarily long. You might remember that. It was like, I was almost getting ready to, for the first time in my career, to walk up to the stage. And then she got it, right? And what happened with that whole thing, and her response afterwards exemplifies what we're talking about. She came up to me in a state of shock a few hours later. She said, everyone's loving what I delivered. Everyone's like, and they still got the messages. And that's the difference. Because she didn't apologize, because she wasn't uncontrollably breaking down, that's empathy. The audience stayed with her. Sympathy, they're hoping you're okay. And that's the shift we don't want.
That's a brilliant distinction right there. Can I drill into, you have worked with like literally thousands of speakers. You mentioned superheroes earlier. You must have seen some patterns of people who are just doing all the right things, and therefore they're able to build a great business. They're able to get rebooked. They're paid. What's showing up for you? Like, what are the three things, if I put you on the spot, that great speakers are doing? And then what are the three things you've noticed that we shouldn't be doing? Yeah, I'm making you work hard on your own.
Yeah, you're making me work hard.
You work hard on your own podcast show.
Gee, you really are flipping this on me, aren't you? So the three things I see doing really well from those that are doing really well is they are able to create resonance with the audience. So the audience, they very quickly shift people to, oh, he's just like me. So there's a universality in the messaging and the emotional undercurrent, right? That people, even if they haven't experienced that thing, they can identify with the emotion or the circumstance. That's number one. Number two, they're speaking to something that an audience craves solving. Right. So you must have a must solve element in your speech, even if you're a motivational speaker. So we spoke about Jason earlier, who, when he came into my world, was screaming, passionate testimony, church platform style. And it was really powerful, but we had to shape it because a general audience will be blown away by that. It's not, so we had to shape that. The third thing is in total service to the audience.
Right. Okay. Yes. Right. It's not about them.
It's not about them, even when it's all about them. Right. So total service to the audience. And that came out of being, I always knew that because of the way I came into speaking 25 odd years ago, I always knew that it was that. But I was at Influence in the USA, which is NSA, the National Speaking Association of America, their big conference, which, as you know, is one of the biggest in the world. And I was there in 2017, and Dan Thurman was stepping out as president. And at the gala dinner, the Americans have a lot of pomp and ceremonies. Actually, in those days, it was actually ball gowns and full-length gowns and things like that. And at the handover of his presidency, he got every speaker in the room to stand up and make a pledge to the privilege of the platform and about being in service. And when I was first standing, I was like, oh, here we go, American pomp and ceremony, blah, blah, blah. And I shouldn't say that because there's a lot of American guests on this podcast. But it was like, really? Do we need to do this? The Australian that just likes to be quiet and have a drink at the back of the room. But when he actually walked us through that pledge, it really struck me that it truly is a privilege. And it truly should be reserved for those who are in service to the audience. And so that really brought it back.
Yeah, and nothing turns you off more than the ego coming through. Seriously, I walk out, I go and have a coffee, or I do some work on something that needs doing rather than listen to someone who's coming totally from an ego perspective.
Yeah, and it's really, I used to say, I used to give warnings with our 3-day boot camps that on day 2, people end up in the fetal position on the floor and not really sure they want to keep going. And I just realized when we're talking about that, this last boot camp, that the last few, I haven't had that. And it's because we're obviously getting better at people coming towards us who resonate with who we are, which is you got to be in service. So I realized that breaking on day 2 used to be because people were still in ego. And you can have healthy ego. You've got to be ambitious. You've got to believe you've got something to bring. You've got to know that you have the right to stand on stage. But it's the ego that just wants their name in lights. It's the ego that's just like, I always knew I was going to be on a stage. Those ones.
Yes.
Right? That doesn't work. It's got to be in service. So those 3 things.
Beautiful. Now let's turn and look at the other side. Well, what do you know to speakers who don't last in the industry, or just simply don't get referrals, don't get booked again? It might just be the reverse of those 3 things you've said, but I'm wondering what gems can come through now if we just focus on the things they're not doing well.
Yeah. So it's one is they don't invest. They're trying to, and this sounds really terrible because I'm a coach and you're a trainer, but they're trying to free their way to success. And so they'll grab bits and pieces from all different people. They have no single source of truth, and they're just hoping that they'll get discovered because their idea is good.
So when you say free, you mean as in free, no fee?
Yeah. No fee, or, turning up and paying the bare minimum at things like PSA. And Professional Speakers Association is great, but you're not going to actually build the skill just by turning up to the meetings, right? And they'll go and do all the free things. We have a lot of free stuff we do throughout the year. We got one tomorrow morning at the time of recording of this, but that's all they'll do. And they try and hobble it together. And you and I both know you've got to do it. That's number one. They try to free their way. You've got to invest time, money, resources. We have we spoke about the gifted few that can do resonance and storytelling really naturally. That's a few. It's not most of us. The second thing is they're not actually doing the reps. So they're turning down the small rooms in waiting for the big ones. And I always go back to Elizabeth McCormick, who's one of the highest paid female speakers in the US now. And when she first realized this was something she could do post her military career, she sat down with the Bureau and asked, and the Bureau said, you need to do 100 gigs. right? We don't care whether they're free. We don't care whether they're paid. We just know after 100 gigs, you'll have the reps and you'll have faced everything you can face. We don't care where they are. Just go and do them. And so Elizabeth said, I went and did all of the Rotary clubs in Dallas Metroplex. Now, we're from Australia, right? I think, oh, yeah, that's a couple. Wait, and then she said, in the Dallas Metroplex, there's 147 Rotary clubs. I did all of them in 12 months. And we just had no idea of scale, right? But it meant that for 147 engagements over a 15-month period, she was doing the reps. And because Rotary clubs only give you 10 to 15 minutes, she didn't try to squeeze her keynote in. She got her opening story and her closing story down pat, right? She used them to refine them. So it's doing the reps. Sam Demo, who I just interviewed, who's the youngest ever CSP, talks about doing the reps, right? Do the reps, do the reps, do the reps. And so everybody's waiting for these glorious stages and to get paid. But I can tell you now, my first fully paid keynote happened by accident because I've been doing the reps. I didn't understand you could get paid for this thing, right? One of my last fully paid closing keynote was a result of doing free at a branch, low paid at a state, at a regional, properly paid at a state, and fully and well paid at a national
level.
Now, you and I both know people who say they're speakers and we know that they're not speaking in places. So if your calendar is not full of paid gigs, get the free ones, get the low paid ones, get the charity ones, get yourself in the rooms doing the reps. So they won't do the reps because they're waiting for perfect.
Yes, and it's in the reps, even in like a no fee engagement. That was when the front table in the room completely collapsed and 10 people, their glasses, their mobiles, everything's just gone onto the floor. It's those things that happen when you're doing the reps that allow you, when you're a fully paid keynoter, to handle anything that comes at you from left field and do it with grace and elegance. And that's why you get paid the big bucks, because when things go wrong, you know what to do.
Yeah, we were talking about some of the things that have gone wrong in my own speaking career in this boot camp. And it was quite funny to actually think back over them. And people were like, oh my goodness. It's like, no, but that's what you're paid for, right? You're paid to deliver. And then the third thing, so they're the first two things. The third thing is actually they're selling ideas and experience rather than something people can use, rather than a solution to a problem. So ideas and experience might be incredible. And I always remember doing an interview with a woman in New York who was a book coach, really big book coach in the US. And she said, people come up to me all the time with their, they've survived cancer or they've done this. And she said, they're amazing stories, but they're not a book. And this you have to say to them, that's not a book, sweetheart. That's just your life, right? And too many speakers who are in the stuck zone, in our red zone, if those who are familiar with our language, they're selling experience, or they're trying to sell a talk of experience or a talk of ideas that doesn't actually, to your point earlier, land points or solve a problem for someone. And so it can be the same story. Some of our greatest success has been taking a speech someone's already put together and reshaping it with that lens. But they don't understand that experiences and ideas are not enough.
Yeah. Okay. And so I think that's two, not doing the reps, and you can't free yourself to success. Is there a third pattern of people who don't make it and don't stay sustainable in this business?
Yeah, there's so many things. People still under it. I can't believe in this day and age, there's two coming to mind. In this day and age, I can't believe that people still underestimate the power of story, and they don't invest in becoming great storytellers. And, there's so many different techniques. There's so many ways. We're really good at shaping story. We're not the only way at shaping story. But in this day and age, there is no excuse for not actually continually building the craft of storytelling. It's been since the dawn of time that stories have held us captive. And so they really still underestimate the power of story, or think just telling your story is enough, but you have to shape your story, right? So that's the next thing. And then I think as well, people think they'll just get discovered. And in the words of my friend David Averin, I'm not famous and I'm not a celebrity. I have to work at this.
Yes. That for a lot, it's, for a few, they might get discovered, but for the bulk of us, we've got to do the work consistently.
Yeah. And I liken it to, there's a book I love by Dr. Michael Unger. He's a psychologist out of Canada. I wrote this book called Change Your World, and I reference it a lot. But he talks about in there, he blows up the myth of rugged individualism. So he went and studied the kids that make it out of abject circumstances. You know, the kid from Nigeria that becomes a lawyer in Australia, and the kid from, the wrong side of the tracks in deep South America, South USA, who becomes the linebacker, the quarterback superstar. And he went and tracked all this around the world. And what he found was we think that grit and talent, and that is enough, and we glorify it. But he like, when you actually sit back and think about the amount of talented kids who've got grit and determination and tenacity who just don't make it. And he actually proved that the ones who make it are the ones who are seen by someone and have a connection with someone. But not only that, when they're offered the bridge, they step onto it, right? And they pursue it. And so talent and ideas and grit and determination and tenacity are not enough, right? You've got to actually make a move, but you've got to make sure that you're positioning yourself at all times to be seen by the right people. But if you're getting seen by the right people and it's not going anywhere, then actually look in the mirror, because it means that something in your speech is not landing, your storytelling is not good enough, you're not generous enough in what you give, look in the mirror. If you're not getting the results, like speaking is the number one litmus test. If you're not getting the results you want, look in the mirror. And the other beauty of speaking and training and facilitating, however you do this, is it's a learnable skill. Every single person can get better at it, right? But look in the mirror. If you're not getting what you want, look in the mirror.
Yeah, it's quoted a lot, but the old definition of insanity applies, doesn't it?
Yeah, it totally applies, right?
Doing the same thing.
I've got someone, and I don't know whether she listens to the podcast, she possibly does. If you are listening, then this is you, who constantly responds to our emails asking if you want to do something, constantly turns up to our free masterclasses, constantly books calls and then doesn't show. And she, Justin last week, had booked a call, pulled out again and said, I'm just waiting for the universe to tell me the time is right. The time is now, people. When you learn to speak for your business, your revenue goes through the roof. I've driven 6, 7 and multi-8-figure growth through speaking for my business. When you learn how to speak well on a stage, your fees go through the roof as a speaker, as you know, right? Your position goes. So all of these things, like, stop waiting. Stop doing the same thing. If it's not working, do something different.
Yeah, and I saw a quote recently that basically said, if you're feeling stuck, well, get active. You're not a tree, right?
It's one of my clients in the US is a great guy. He's a 1% producer in the mortgage industry, which in the US means he writes a stupid amount of mortgages every year.
That's huge, yeah.
He's also an endurance athlete, so he's done the Great World Race and marathons everywhere and all this sort of stuff. And he's a philanthropist, so he just got honoured for being the first individual in America to personally raise and donate $1 million for Make-A-Wish. So there's all these things. But he talks about he got really stuck a while ago. And he was at a certain level, which would blow most people's minds from a career perspective. But he just, for 7 years, couldn't punch through. And that's how he got into endurance sports, because he decided to go and create a breakthrough somewhere else. And the minute he created the breakthrough somewhere else, everything moved in his career as well, right? And so it is the epitome of, if something's not working, find a different way.
Yes, yeah. And I'll link you back to your comment earlier where you said a lot of it's about your own self-talk and getting that
100%.
right first before you worry too much about what you're trying to put out there into the world via your messages and your stories. Okay, 2 things before we start to head into a wrap-up, Jacqueline. Like I've heard you say to most of your guests on your podcast, you could speak to them all day long, and you and I have shot the breeze for 2 or 3 hours at times and not sure where the time's gone, but we're going to have to move towards wrapping this up. So 2 things. AI. Hot topic. It's going to affect us all. Well, what's your philosophy for someone who's using speaking to drive their business? Where do we need to land on the whole topic of AI?
Goodness. How long have we got before we have to wrap this up? Because I've been passionate about this for years, right? When AI first crashed into our world, I got all of our groups trained by someone in the US. I said it was a bigger change than getting the internet and getting smartphones. And I think it's proving to be true. From a speaking perspective, AI is now replicating. You can do videos based on your voice samples. You can do audiobooks based on your voice samples. It's doing incredible things, like I was talking with someone from the US who had flown into Dubai to this state-of-the-art recording studio, did one commercial, which would normally cost him $450,000 for about $250,000. And then they did the rest. He ended up with 7 commercials for $600,000. He did one in the studio, and they just repurposed it. So AI is mind-blowing. What it's doing is it's creating a massive level of distrust. And we're even seeing that in our platforms. We're seeing that, people are looking for knowing that it's actually you. And so your original voice, your own spoken word content is going to be the most critical thing you've got in the future. It will be your only way to stand out. Because what people are looking for is, can I trust you? Right? And it's going to only accelerate. So if you're not mastering the ability to speak well in this next 2 to 3 years, like everyone talks about, if you don't catch up with AI automations and workflows and what it can do for you, you're going to be left behind. I can tell you right now, the people who are going to be invisible are the ones who don't know how to actually speak. Because you standing on a platform, you standing on a stage, you turning up in a room and people go, oh my goodness. Right? And it will flow through as well, because you'll be able to do YouTube videos and things where people can verify that's actually you. And so I've always believed that speaking is your biggest competitive advantage. Warren Buffett said it 30 years ago, right? Stephen Covey said it decades and decades ago. It's always been the case, but now more so. The other thing is, what's really interesting is John Sanai, who's I think he's the number 5 futurist in the world. I heard him speak. And he was really interesting. It was all about AI. It's all about being human in the age of AI. But he was talking about, people think it's going to change how we speak, right? And he said, but it's not. It's going to change what we're listening for. And this is where I started to go deep on the work of resonance, because we're going to be listening for things that AI can't do, and AI cannot create resonance. So if you actually really want to win at the game, use AI to amplify and augment, but do not use it to create and to write and to speak. And it's a really important thing. Brainstorm with it, then get out of it, right? It's also for women, the women in our audience who are listening, it's really important because AI is coded. There's coders behind it. It's not magic. There's coders behind AI and machine learning. 87% of them are men, right? And 80% of those are an average age of 29.
Right.
So for women, they need to actually learn how to speak. That's number one. The second thing is that I can tell, and you were at Next Stage, which was a combination of our paid speaker class. For the first time ever, I had to actually send most of the scripts back. So even the best of the speakers ran it through AI at the end, right, to edit it. And every single one of them challenged me, saying, oh, no, but I've trained it in my voice. I know, but it's still tripped. So when you use AI to write or to create a speech or anything like that, what you're doing is you're ending up in the bell curve, right? So AI, machine learning, is all based on the internet, the biggest data set in the world. It's going for the average. It's going for the bell curve. And I always say, as a speaker, you want to bell curve your audience, not be in the bell curve. So you want to land it so well that 10 to 15% of the people can't get to the room fast enough. 15 to 20% of the room become raving fans and rush you. And the rest of them, you walk past and, hey, Ian, great presentation. Really enjoyed it today. Right? But what's happening when we use AI to write our speeches and edit our speeches? It's putting us back in the middle. We become the bell curve. We become the noise.
Yeah, isn't that what a great distinction? And I'm thinking of Winston Marsh, who goes way back in the speaking industry in Australia. But he says, don't aim for average. You're the cream. You're the cream of the crap, and you're the bottom of the best. Cream of the crap and the bottom of the best. So average is not something we should aim for. And that's a really interesting perspective, that using AI will force you become the bell curve.
Yeah, you become the middle of the bell curve. There's no quicker way to die than become the middle of the bell curve.
Yeah, so you're saying use it from the effectiveness, efficiency, idea creation, brainstorming, but don't dehumanize the writing of your speech and your content, because that's what we want to resonate with.
Yeah. And when I say brainstorming, don't go into it and say, I want to speak on this. Tell me what I should speak on. By brainstorming, I mean, this is what I'm thinking, big download, and then say, what help me organize it, right? Don't ask it to write it for you. Give it what you're thinking, even if it's random, and then ask it to help you organize it and then pull it back out.
Yeah,
Right.
wonderful. And so this is not coming from an ego perspective, but it's reinforcing what you're saying. I had a client who's rebooked me to do some work in 26, and he actually said, we had the speaker who had obviously used AI to write the speech. What we want is the Ian Stevens we get with the stories, with the activities, with the different learning modalities. So he recognizes that that's of value.
And people, corporates, event organizers, event planners, they invest a lot of money in our fees and also in the events themselves, right? Whether it's a corporate training day where they've got to pull everyone together. When I used to do the stuff for the Australian Institute of Sport gold medal, like they had to fly these guys in from all around the country, right, to Canberra in those days for the thing. There's a really high investment. So if you want to keep getting those $5, $6, $8, $10, $12, $15,000 checks, you're going to have to be better than Google. Google is information. AI is information. You are the wisdom, right? And if you can't bring wisdom, and the other thing I think is going to really stand you out as well, and this is why we get people so we don't allow people to touch their laptops in the boot camp until the end of day 3. And that's for a very specific reason. We want to pull out what's already inside of you, what you know to be true about the world. And one of the reasons why I want that to be the case, and this is why you do so well as well, is if you're getting AI to give you what you're going to do, you can't go off track. So you can't take a random question. You can't realize the room wants something different and go there. You lose that flexibility that you have to meet the room because it's not yours. It's been given to you. Right. And, the other quote that I heard on a podcast recently was AI teaches you what to say, but doesn't allow you to learn.
Yeah. And it links back to some great advice I had once was, Ian, just take a couple of years off from reading any books and start developing your own IP and content rather than learning other people's. And, AI is only what you can learn. So, brilliant. Jacqueline, I reckon there's 84 tweets that comes out of an hour with you. You are the wisdom is another one. So as we wrap this up now, we're heading, I think this episode is going to drop somewhere around middle December as people are thinking about winding down for the year. So what book are you going to read over the Christmas festive season? And what are you and Martin going to do, which would be good advice for speakers who are trying to break in or build a business to just check out and slow down a little?
Yeah, look, I've got a couple of books bookmarked, and one is Better Than Average, which
we're back to that average again.
Yeah. But it's the founder of Pub Choir, which is now a global movement, right? So Pub Choir is the thing where everyone gets together in a pub and it's like karaoke at scale. And it's now become global. So it's the founder of Pub Choir, and she's fascinating and delightful. And so it's about being better than average. So really looking forward to that. I've bought, and actually everyone who's already signing up for some of our programs next year are getting this. I've bought a book called Storyworthy, which Sam Demmer recommended, and it is a book by one of the greatest slam poet champions in the world.
Right.
So I've bought that and I'm reading that. And then I've got a range of novels. When I'm on holidays, I love reading fiction. So I have my favorite authors and I read as much of those as I can consume. So very little business reading and a lot of fiction and get my head out of here.
Yeah, I think that's really wise advice. Whether you're breaking in or you're established as a speaker, you just need a little downtime to get out of all this business reading and research and everything you do on a daily basis, and actually just check out with a good novel.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that'll be my reading, and I love reading. So the summer break is where I can be who I was before big businesses again. I will consume a book at a rate of knots. It's my pleasure.
I have to give a shout out to my new favorite book, which is One Delicious by Peter Merritt.
It's right behind me, and I don't know whether on the final videos, but it's right behind me. It's incredible.
Yeah. I've read that over the last month, and what I plan to do is just have a highlighter available over the break, and his stories are like reading a novel anyway, so it's not against the advice we've given. Jacqueline Brooker, what a fantastic milestone! 100 episodes. We're interviewing the founder, when we've got into the passion behind it all for you. What's the final bit of advice or the pearl of wisdom that hasn't come out here today? It's the question you wish I had have asked, and you're going to give us a really brief little bit of advice to anyone who's thinking about speaking to drive business or already on a journey with you.
It's a question I've actually stopped asking because not many people have an answer to it, and it's, who inspires you from a speaking perspective? And the reason why I've stopped asking it is most people can't tell me anymore.
Right.
And I actually think that's dangerous territory because it means you're not looking outside of yourself. You're not looking to something aspirational. And those who can tell me why somebody inspires them as a speaker quite often can't articulate why. Right.
Yeah.
And so the question that I've stopped asking, and I may actually just bring it back into my pre-briefing, especially with the shifts we're making the podcast next year, is it's actually really important. Like, who does inspire you? Right? Who is it that you're looking to emulate? And it doesn't have to be everything, but you might want the storytelling skills of that person and the closing skills of that person. And, you want to be an opening keynote one day. So you want to be like that person. If you don't know who inspires you from a speaking perspective, I'm going to phrase the question to the audience. What the hell are you aiming for?
Yeah. So we're almost back to Alice in Wonderland when the conversation with the Cheshire Cat. She says, which road do I take? And the cat says, well, it all depends on where you want to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. But literally, how do you know what good looks like? When I first realized I wanted to take this really seriously, I went to, I think it was 5 speaking conferences, not just in Australia, but wherever I could get to in the first 15 months after I decided that. And I consumed videos on YouTube and consumed speakers' videos and all that sort of stuff. And not because I just wanted to travel, that was really good. And not because I wanted to meet great people, that was really good. I wanted to know what good looks like, right? Like, if I was going to I'd been playing with it for a few years, I'd realized that we had something. And I was like, no, if I'm going to train people to be good, I need to know what good looks like. And we forget about that. Like, what does good look like for you? And you can't make that up from your own experience, especially if you're emerging, because you don't freaking know.
Yep. So get clear on who inspires you. Move away from average, I think, has been a key message today. And look, I've just loved spending time flipping this and putting you in the hot seat rather than you being the interviewer.
And you did. You put me in the hot seat.
I made you work hard for it, but I love just opening the lid on your head, because there is a wealth of knowledge there. And I just, on behalf of the audience, thank you so much for today, and can't wait to see who you bring us on the podcast in 2026.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Ian. I think.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Jacqueline.